Cruise ships are floating death traps with no laws that dump buttloads of toxic waste into the ocean and pay virtually no taxes despite making millions of dollars every single week. Let me explain. So you want to get into the booming business of travel. People crave exploring new places and they're willing to pay top dollar for the pleasure. And there are a ton of different ways to approach it. You could start a tourism company, invest in a fancy hotel, maybe even start a souvenir store or bar. But the problem with all these things is that they're just one-off opportunities to get more money out of gullible tourists. They come in, they eat, sleep, or buy once, and then they just leave, taking all their vacation money somewhere else. That's why if you really want to rack up the most money in the travel industry, you need to invest in a cruise ship. This is satire, not financial advice.
That's exactly what she did.
One cruise ship can make you more money in a single year than 15 different luxury hotels combined. Think about it. Cruise ships can carry over 6,500 people on them, almost double the capacity of some of the biggest hotels on the planet. Each of those passengers are paying a couple $100 to a couple $1,000 to just get onto the ship in the first place. That's over $1 million in revenue before the boat has even left the port. They board your cruise ship for a week or more, and on the vessel, well, they're gonna need to spend money on food, drinks, massages, recreational activities, souvenirs. They're gonna wanna gamble, and guess what? You own a monopoly on all of it. You get to capture every single cent they spend. You can even charge 75 cents per minute for Wi-Fi, and the passengers will just have to suck it up, bend over, and take it, leading each passenger to spend almost $100 per day on all this tantalizing stuff. After you account for all your expenses, you're walking away with around $291 in profit per passenger. Or in other words, you're taking home $239,000 every single day at sea. Do you see how powerful this is? Cruise ships are such an attractive pitch that they pull in over 13 million passengers every single year. But as passengers embark on a cruise for a fun, easy escape from their everyday lives, little do they know that they're supporting one of the sickest, most destructive industries in the entire world. Deaths, disappearances, sickness, you name it, cruise ships have it. So stay dangerous, subscribe for more, and this is the evil industry of cruise ships. And if you want some free stocks, you can get up to 12 free stocks when you sign up for Webull and deposit any amount with the link below. You can literally deposit as little as 1 cent and you'll still get the free stocks. This promotion definitely isn't gonna last forever, their last promotions didn't, so you're gonna wanna claim it as soon as possible with the link below. By opening an account, you're automatically gonna get 2 free stocks, each valued between $3 and $300. And then you'll receive another 4 or 8 or 10 free stocks valued between $7,000 and $3,000 after you make an initial deposit of any amount. And if you're new to Webull, you're gonna want to get an account set up as soon as possible before the next bull market comes so you can be ready to plunder. Webull is a great commission-free stock trading app. They allow you to invest with as little as $5 thanks to fractional shares, where you can own a fraction of a stock without committing to a whole share. And they even have a paper trading feature, where you can hone in your skills on a stock trading simulator without putting real money on the line. This is great if you're a beginner, you don't have enough funds yet, you have the capital but don't know where to start, or if you want to test new trading strategies. So get up to 12 free stocks by pausing the video and clicking the link below. Pause the video and click the link below to claim now. Thanks to Webull for sponsoring this video. Let's rewind. Before cruise ships became the money-hungry billion-dollar industry they are today, ships were the only way to cross the oceans back in the 1800s. You know, like how the Titanic was supposed to go, before the whole iceberg thing.
Iceberg, right ahead!
At the time, the only people who could afford a ship were the ultra-wealthy, people like royal princes, authorities, and nobles. But as word spread around, more rich people wanted to hitch a ride on these ships, so the industry started building them bigger and more luxurious to accommodate their rich clientele. It went on like this for over 100 years, but then the 1960s came.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard the spacious cabin. Attractively decorated, air-conditioned but draft-free.
Commercial airplanes. They were faster, easier, sleeker, more modern. They were just simply a better way to travel. So the cruise ship industry was faced with an existential crisis. They were losing all their customers fast. So if they didn't come up with a way to make people want to ride on cruise ships again, even though planes were clearly a better option, they were gonna sink. So the industry completely rebranded cruise ships.
For nearly 2 decades, we have endeavored to bring to our passengers a cruise experience that is both uniquely satisfying and totally memorable.
Now, ships weren't just a way to get to a destination, cruise ships were the destinations themselves. They transformed cruises from purely being a method of transportation to an exciting experience, and it worked like a charm. The other major change the industry made was that cruise ships weren't just for rich people anymore, they were for everyone, and the industry was making more money than it ever had before. But as fun and exciting as they appear, there are a ton of dark things happening behind the scenes that go into making these high-energy, profitable cruises happen. Things that the industry really don't want you to know about. First, there's the sewage. Having thousands of people confined to a ship for a week or more means there's gonna be thousands of tons of human waste that cruise ships need to dispose of. That's around 10 swimming pools worth of waste by the end of a week-long voyage. And you may think that there would be strict rules about how to handle all this extremely toxic waste, but you would be wrong. All cruise ships have to do is be 12 miles out at sea, and they're allowed to dump all the stuff right into the ocean. Think about that next time you're taking a dip in the sea. It's not just really disgusting, it's also genuinely bad for the environment. And this is just the stuff that cruise ships are legally allowed to do. There's also a lot of illegal things cruise ships have committed.
Carnival's Princess Cruises will pay a $40 million fine for dumping oily waste into the ocean. It is the largest penalty of its kind in history. The company also pleaded guilty to 7 felony charges.
The world's largest cruise company has pleaded guilty to violating the terms of its probation just 2 years after it was found purely guilty of environmental crimes.
Aside from polluting the ocean, cruise ships are also really good at polluting the air we breathe.
The amount of pollution emitted by a luxury liner equals that of 5 million cars covering the same distance.
To put that into perspective, there are about 3.6 million drivers in New York City. So every single cruise ship is putting out 1.5 times the size of New York City pollution on every single trip. There are 323 ships on the ocean all the time, and they're all polluting the air that much every single day. That's a lot of pollution. Cruise ships also use an especially destructive type of fuel to power their ships. It's called heavy fuel oil.
It's so heavy that it's like tar, and its lifespan is just years and years and years.
And then the other impact is when you burn it, and it burns dirty.
It's highly viscous, and when combusted to generate the power to propel vessels, generates enormous quantities of highly toxic gases.
And they're not using a little dab of this heavy fuel either. The average cruise ship uses 1,500 tons of heavy fuel every single day. Every single day. You know that giant black cloud that comes out of the top of cruise ships everywhere they go? Yeah, that's heavy fuel oil being burned off. And all of that is going into your lungs.
There's an environmental group that now says time on board a cruise ship could be bad for your health. Air quality is just as bad or even worse, they say, than some of the world's most polluted cities.
But the air pollution will be the least of your worries when you're on a cruise. If you were unlucky enough to be on a cruise ship when COVID hit, then you were practically guaranteed a positive test. That's because cruise ships have always been a breeding ground for disease. It's actually a recurring issue. Cruise ships are often nicknamed floating petri dishes for just how common outbreaks occur on board. And it makes sense. Cruise ships confine thousands of different people all together in an unfamiliar environment with new food and unusual germs, all from foreign countries. Yum! So if one person gets the bug, they are all getting it. There is no escape. There are a ton of different things you can catch on a cruise, but the most common is a norovirus outbreak.
Royal Caribbean's Oasis of the Seas got to Port Canaveral here at 4 o'clock this morning, and you can see passengers are still disembarking as they described to me their experience being on board the ship after hundreds get sick of suspected norovirus.
Which involves vomiting and diarrhea. Norovirus outbreaks spread through close contact and contaminated surfaces, which make them perfect for cruises. The CDC reported that almost 1 in 10 passengers contracted a gastrointestinal illness on cruise ships between 2008 and 2014. Those are not very good odds for passengers paying thousands of dollars. But hey, at least it will make for a memorable vacation. One of the best things about the cruise ship industry is that you pay virtually zero taxes. Yes, you heard that right. Almost $0 to the taxman. So if you've been looking for a business to start that's practically tax-free, but starting a religion isn't your thing, here's what you gotta do. Step 1. Acquire a cruise ship. Unlike most businesses that must operate in a single location, cruise ships do their business out on the open seas. That gives you a lot more wiggle room when it comes to your tax jurisdiction. Enough wiggle room to still operate out of US ports so you can get the money out of the Americans, all without having to pay any US taxes on those profits. Step 2. Register your ship in a foreign country. Every ship on the planet is required by international law to register with a country and fly the flag of that place out on sea. But who said that place had to be the US? According to a 100 euro tax code, cruise ships are able to register in a country that have much more hands-off laws than the US. It's called flying a flag of convenience. That's why even though 90% of cruise ship companies do business in the US, they fly the flags of other countries. This magical exemption allows cruise ships to pay an average tax rate of 0.8%, even though every other US corporation is taxed at 21%. Step number 3. Sit back and let the profits roll in. The US government has set cruise ships up perfectly to make as much money as they want off of Americans without paying the country a dime in taxes. Plus, bonus points, since your ship is registered in a small country with an inept government like Panama or Liberia, you're also not confined to all those pesky US employment laws. You can hire workers from all over the world and pay them next to nothing for working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. The average cruise ship worker makes around $1.62 to $2.27 per hour. That is pretty insane. You're making billions while only having to pay your laborers a couple dollars an hour with almost zero taxes? This is the best business ever. And while you're not paying taxes, you can still utilize US taxpayer-funded services. Whenever a disease outbreak happens on board, or a ship gets caught in a storm and needs rescue, or a passenger falls overboard, it's the US government that must step in and help. One of these rescue missions cost over $800,000, and it all came out of US taxes. But the lawlessness gets much darker than just taxes and labor. There's also the deaths and disappearances.
That seems really dark.
No, it's not dark. You're misunderstanding me, bro.
I think I am.
In the early morning hours of March 24, 1998, the Bradley family awoke to a nightmare on their Royal Caribbean International cruise. The family's 23-year-old daughter Amy was missing.
An all-American girl vanishes from a Caribbean cruise liner.
Somebody saw her, somebody wanted her, and somebody took her.
It seemed impossible. It had only been a few hours since her family saw her last, and everything seemed fine. And they were all the way out in the middle of the open ocean, so where could she have possibly gone? Her family didn't waste a second and immediately alerted their cruise ship's crew, begging them to show a photo of Amy to the other passengers and to secure the exits at the next stop. Anything that might help find their daughter. But the crew wasn't having it. They weren't going to show her photo, and they definitely weren't going to halt the cruise's itinerary. The crew was too worried it would disturb the other guests and their profits. All they said they could do was search around the common areas and bathrooms as quietly as possible. The cruise went on as usual, and the passengers' vacation went undisturbed. And yet, Amy Lynn Bradley is still missing to this day, 25 years later. Her family still believes that they could have found her if the cruise ship treated the situation more seriously. Amy's story is sad, but it isn't rare. Hundreds of people have become victims of violent crimes on cruise ships, or they just disappeared altogether, never to be seen again.
On the left, pictured with her sister, this is 24-year-old Rebecca Corriam, a girl from Chester seeing the world, and now lost at sea 5,000 miles from home.
Son boarded a Royal Caribbean ship for his honeymoon and he never got off.
We'll go on to that mysterious death of a cruise ship. On a cruise ship, the FBI is investigating after authorities say a 39-year-old woman died on board a Princess cruise ship in Alaska following a domestic dispute.
Crimes and disappearances on cruise ships are an epidemic. Nearly 170 people have disappeared on cruise ships since 1995, and there's good reason why it's so common. It's because there are virtually no laws or systems of justice once you set sail on the cruise ship. Yep, that's right. If you ever need to take someone out without getting caught, just invite them onto a cruise and you're good to go. That's the thing about being in international waters.
International waters, the land that law forgot.
Hope is thousands of miles away, so the people who respond to all the crimes on a cruise ship are completely unqualified cruise line security guards, who are obviously on the side of the cruise line, not the passengers.
We're gonna be out on open ocean, no laws, just us and our tasty treats.
And even when the case is eventually investigated, it's done by the country where the ship is registered, which again is usually a tiny country with an inept government with no budget that is thousands of miles away from where the crime occurred. So if you or a loved one becomes a victim of a crime on a cruise ship, it would be the law enforcement of places like Panama or the Bahamas investigating it. If you're an American, the FBI can choose to step in, but even then they usually don't arrive until long after crucial evidence is gone. It's an impossible situation for law enforcement, and an absolutely perfect scenario for creeps, thieves, and murderers to do anything they want. That's why crime is absolutely rampant on cruises, and why most of these cases never get solved. And yet despite all of this, millions of people still sign up like lambs for slaughter every single year to take a ride on them. And it seems like there is not an end in sight for this industry. Even after COVID, the cruise ship industry is still just too powerful after 60 years of unmitigated reign. They're too rich after all these tax-free decades. And cruise lines have been reinvesting that money into lobbying the US government to keep things just the way they are. They spent $66 million in lobbying between 1998 and 2019. And thanks to lots of special donations to candidates in cruise ship states, these candidates fight on their behalf to block cruise taxes. And there's no system in place to enforce rules against them anyways. Cruise ships are like their own little floating nation. And the governments of these nations go by the names of Carnival, Norwegian, and Royal Caribbean. The fact that cruise ships found a way to only pay their slaves, I mean laborers, $1.50 to $2.50 an hour, while they rake in billions is not that surprising if you watch this channel. Take a look at the Fortune 500 list. Pretty much all of them had to find some way to exploit modern day slavery to ever be able to scale to their size. For cruise ships it was this, for Shell it was by exploiting Nigeria, for Nike it's sweatshops in Asia, and so on and so forth. So if you're looking to get into business, you are gonna need to understand this if you don't want to get stuck at the size of a small business. And lucky for you, I expose all of it in Financial Slavery Masterclass. Financial Slavery Masterclass is the course that says what powerful people are too afraid to say out loud. It exposes how slavery never went away, it just changed forms, and it slipped right under everyone's noses. And most importantly, it breaks down how you can apply all this stuff today right now so that you can ascend the ladders of money and power. I believe that education should be as entertaining as a Netflix series. That's why you're gonna get taught all of this stuff through binge-worthy documentary-style lessons that are just as entertaining as these videos that you come to love. Which is why I can confidently say that there has never been such a ballsy course like this ever made. And you can watch the first lesson for free right now with the link below. Trust me, if you enjoy these videos, you are gonna love this first free lesson. And all the other lessons are just as entertaining. There's a 14-day no questions asked refund policy, just email us, and you can also earn around $100 for every person you refer to the masterclass as well. So scroll down, click the link at the top of the description or in the pinned comment, and watch the first lesson for free right now.